The Disney worlds have always served an important role in the Kingdom Hearts series, mainly with the characters and stories acting as parallels to the original narrative. These worlds help highlight the struggles and emotions of the main characters and act as foreshadowing to important events in either a single game, events later in the series, or even referencing events from previous games. So of course many of us are asking, what Disney worlds will appear in KH4 and what role are they going to play in that game's narrative? Hey us, ladies, gents, and NBs! Welcome to or back to the channel. My name's Sky, and today I want to go over what Disney worlds I think could be in KH4 and what parallels they could have with the game's possible main narrative. While I've seen all kinds of discussions around which worlds should get in, I've not seen anyone go truly in-depth into the subject beyond a surface level, at least from what I've seen anyway. And I'm not saying that you have to go super in-depth as to why you want to see a specific Disney world get added. Speculation should be fun, and it's totally cool if you want to see a specific world get included just because you really like the IP or think it could make for a fun world to visit. I just want to examine what worlds I think will work for KH4's potential themes and arcs based on a narrative analysis of the games, and what direction I believe the series is heading in. This list won't be in any particular order, by the way, since I'm not ranking worlds based on how much I want them. I should also mention that this video does require you to have already watched both the Broken Heart Theory video and the Truth of the Child of Destiny Theory video, because most of the parallels I'll be talking about would be to those two theories. With all of that out of the way, let's begin. Before I go over the worlds themselves, I want to explain how I think Sora would be able to get to them. While a lot of people think that Sora will go to more realistic and death-related worlds in Unreality, I don't think that any Disney worlds actually exist in Unreality. This is because, from a meta perspective, if Unreality is meant to represent the real world, then it makes sense for worlds based on fictional stories to not exist there. I also think the idea of live-action and death-related worlds doesn't hold much water either, since we already have a few worlds in reality based on live-action IPs like Tron and Pirates of the Caribbean, along with areas like the Underworld and Davy Jones's Locker and Olympus Coliseum and the Caribbean, respectively. Now, as for how Sora would travel to the Disney worlds, I think it will be through the Astral Dimension. Specifically, I think the Lost Masters will either use the Astral Dimension to bring worlds from reality into Unreality, or want to bring those worlds just into the Astral Dimension. As for why they would do that, I admittedly have not thought of a good explanation for that. But I still think the Lost Masters bringing the worlds into the Astral Dimension would be an easy way for Sora to go to the Disney worlds. Now that I've gone over how I think Sora would get to the worlds, let's move on to the list itself. Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi. Now it's all but confirmed that Star Wars will appear in KH4 due to the announcement trailer showing off what we can assume is Endor and what looks like a foot of an AT-ST. And from that we can assume that Return of the Jedi will be the story that will be retold in the game. But you have to ask, why that film specifically? Well, let's examine the two core characters in the film's narrative, Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. First, let's talk about Luke. In the film, Luke struggles with the idea of fighting his father, Vader, and Yoda even says to Luke that he's not ready to carry the burden of facing his father. He also warns Luke about the dangers of letting his negative emotions overtake him and falling to the dark side because of that. This could be a parallel to Sora being at risk of falling to the darkness because of his own struggles with his emotions and having him carry the burdens of others in the past, even if his heart couldn't handle them. Moving on to Darth Vader / Anakin. He's the chosen one of the Star Wars universe, you were the chosen one! Who was brought up in an environment that taught him to suppress feelings that are seen as a hindrance by the authority figures around him. He also has a tendency to let heroism get the better of him, and is also very self-sacrificing, always willing to save people he cares about. And doesn't that sound a lot like Sora? Both let the heroic ideals get to them, are too self-sacrificing, and have authority figures that tell them how to handle their emotions, but in a way that hurts them more than it helps. And they both ignore their growing inner darkness because of that. And just like how this led Anakin to fall to the dark side, I believe Sora will also be consumed by his own darkness. Now let's talk about the climactic moment from the film with Luke, Vader, and Emperor Palpatine. Because I believe that this confrontation could parallel the possible confrontation between Riku, Sora, and the Master of Masters in KH4's finale. In that scene, Emperor Palpatine dismisses Luke's hope for Anakin to come back from the dark side, and he tempts Luke into fighting Vader and to take his father's place as his new apprentice. We see Luke nearly succumb to his anger, but when he sees how similar he and Vader are, he gives up fighting and proclaims his status as a Jedi. And when Palpatine nearly kills Luke, Anakin sacrifices himself to save his son in one final act of love, which ultimately allowed Anakin to fulfill his role as the Chosen One. There are a couple of parallels within this scene that could hint at KH4's finale. 1. Riku trying to save Sora from being consumed by the darkness without having to fight him. 2. The Master of Masters getting Riku to allow darkness inside of him and sacrificing himself to save Sora, fulfilling his role as a child of destiny. And 3. Sora letting his darkness get the better of him and ruthlessly fighting Riku until he has a moment of clarity. There's this other scene with Obi-Wan from earlier in the film that I want to talk about. In it, Obi-Wan talks to Luke about how someone views certain truths, and the conclusions they can come to based on their perspective, and how some things can be true from a certain point of view. This could tie in with KH4's themes of contrasting perspectives and how people believe what's true and what's false. On a related note, I also want to touch upon how Kingdom Hearts could use Star Wars as a way to comment on how light and darkness are viewed in the Kingdom Hearts universe, and how it could tie into the series' meta-narrative about storytelling. Both franchises use light and darkness as core elements of their respective lore and narrative, but they approach the concept in different ways. Kingdom Hearts has made efforts in stating that light and darkness aren't inherently good or evil, but it's the people that make them that way. Meanwhile, Star Wars, despite repeatedly saying that the light and dark sides of the Force are important, they still emphasize the importance of light over darkness. They have been able to acknowledge this linear view in recent entries like Ahsoka, for example, but not much of a push has been made to change that. So Kingdom Hearts could use Star Wars not only to comment on the dangers of a linear view of light and darkness within the Kingdom Hearts universe, but also the real world. I should also point out how similar Leia, Luke, and company rescuing Han at the beginning of the film is to Riku and the others trying to find Sora. There is one more important thing I should mention. Something that I feel must be included in order for this to be a perfect Star Wars world. Without this one thing, this world would fail as a Star Wars world. And that thing is Mr. Ratu himself, Rajantilles, please no more, I am begging you to include him! Inside Out. Now, an Inside Out world is a popular pick for many, but how would it be implemented? Well, what I'm hoping for is for it to exist inside Sora's mind. This would be a good way for Sora to examine his journey in the series so far, and would allow him to go inside his dreams and memories. From long-term memory, to the Islands of Personality, to Imagination Land, to Dream Productions, to the Memory Dump. These places have a ton of potential for Sora's own introspection, and could also be a fun trip down memory lane for us fans. The other reason why Sora should go in an inside-out world inside his mind is to interact with his emotions and learning about how they've affected his life. Specifically, joy. I think it's safe to assume that Sora's joy could act similarly to Riley's joy. Just like how joy in Riley's mind wanted to make sure that she felt happy all the time, the joy in Sora's mind has probably done the same for him, influencing his happy nature and preventing him from thinking too much about his other, less positive emotions. And if Sora's heart is broken and his memory of Riku is lost, then that could lead to some really interesting scenes of joy because she would feel guilty about letting those things happen. And I think him interacting with his other emotions, especially sadness, given her role in the first film, would allow him to understand the other feelings in his heart that he hasn't given much attention to. Also, full disclosure, I haven't seen Inside Out 2 yet, so I really can't comment on any potential parallels between Kingdom Hearts and that film. So, apologies for not bringing up that. Frozen 2. So I know it's all but guaranteed that Arendelle would return in KH4 and for Frozen 2 to be adapted because of that. But I don't think many people realize how perfect Frozen 2 is for this game. And I want to start by talking about Elsa, my queen.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment. Now come on now.
Elsa's arc is about her pursuing the truth of her powers. She spends most of the film hearing a voice and having the desire to follow that voice because she secretly wants her life to change from the one she's living as Queen of Arendelle. During her journey, she comes across memories of her parents' past and hints at the true nature of her abilities, which leads her to Ahtohallan, a place her mother sang a song about when Elsa was little. Alta Holland is said to be a river full of memory, with answers on why Elsa has powers. She learns that she is one of 5 spirits of the Enchanted Forest, and that she is a gift from the spirits to her parents after her mother, Iduna, saved Agnar, her future father. And on that note, both of Elsa's songs could tie in perfectly with Sora's arc. In Into the Unknown, Elsa sings about a voice that's calling to her. She goes from wanting to ignore it to wanting to follow it, regardless of what kind of change it could make in her life. And in Show Yourself, Elsa sings about the comfort and excitement she feels towards that voice as she gets closer and closer to where it's coming from, which leads her to finding memories of her mother and fully becoming an enchanted spirit. I think both songs in Elsa's arc overall could tie in well with Sora's arc, because he'll probably spend most of the game wondering about his broken heart, wondering why it became broken in the first place, and finding the memories of Riku. Another thing I want to bring up is Elsa's reaction to being in the Enchanted Forest. We see her look happy and at home when she first arrives there, and she eventually calls the place her new home. I think Sora might feel something similar when he's in Unreality, and might even make that place his new home as well. I also think Elsa being one of the Enchanted Spirits could also parallel Riku being the Child of Destiny, which would yet be another parallel between the two queer icons. I also want to talk about the song The Next Right Thing. This starts as a phrase that is brought up a few times throughout the film. It means to just follow your heart and take everything step by step. After Anna learns about the truth of her grandfather and loses both Elsa and Olaf, she is all alone and without hope. She becomes tempted to stay in her inner darkness because she doesn't know how to go on without the people she loves. But she builds up the strength to go on without the people she cares about, and makes the sacrifice of destroying the dam that Arendelle built years prior, that could also destroy the kingdom in the process. I think learning to do the next right thing is a lesson Sora will have to learn while he's in Unreality, because none of his friends, who he remembers anyway, will be with him for seemingly most of the game. So he won't have the guidance of most of his friends to help him. And him learning from Anna to stand on his own through doing the next right thing, aka following his heart and taking things one step at a time, would help him learn to be more independent. Anna and Elsa's relationship also parallels Sora and Riku's relationship. Now, I know we all know this from KH4, but Frozen 2 also adds some more interesting parallels between the two duos. At the end of the film, Elsa tells Anna that they represent a bridge between Arendelle and the Enchanted Forest, which is made even clearer when, in the film's final moments, we see Anna become Queen of Arendelle and Elsa living in the Enchanted Forest with the rest of the spirits. This could easily be a parallel to Sora and Riku being the joint Child of Destiny and what they both represent in their relationship. Like how Riku is the initial Child of Destiny, just like Elsa is an enchanted spirit, and Sora is just an ordinary human who was given powers of the Child of Destiny by Riku, just like Anna is an ordinary human who took on her sister's role as Queen. It's also worth noting that when Anna destroyed the dam, Elsa came back to life and was able to prevent Arendelle from being destroyed by the water, which could be a parallel to Sora bringing Riku back to life and saving the day. I should also mention the parallels between Kristoff and Riku. Kristoff's arc is wanting to finally propose to Anna and take the next step in their relationship. But over the course of the film, he starts questioning whether they should take that next step, and if Anna loves him the same way he loves her. The song Lost in the Words is great at conveying these complex and conflicting emotions. Emotions of your precious person leaving you behind, fear of telling that person how you feel about them, and wanting to know if that person feels the same way about you. Which could be a parallel to Riku. We see in Dream Drop Distance that Riku has trouble letting others know how he feels. And he also has very complex feelings about his relationship with Sora. Which makes me believe that his arc in KH4 would be about him learning to be more open about his feelings and will think a lot about his relationship with Sora. I should also mention that the characters in Frozen 2 going to the Enchanted Forest is an example of a trope where the main character, or characters, go to an unknown and closed-off place where they learn more about themselves and have to face their fears. Just like how KH4 is going to be about Sora and Riku going to Unreality, an unknown and closed-off place where they are likely to learn more about themselves and might have to face their fears. This ties in well to the film's main theme of change and how people react to it. From the change of discovering your identity, to the change from taking the next step in a relationship, to the change of growing up, to even the fear of change itself. Moana, which also happens to be my favorite Disney film. Moana makes so much sense for Kingdom Hearts, especially with how many parallels there are between Moana, Sora, and Riku. All three are islanders who care a lot about their loved ones, dream of leaving their home to see the outside world, are chosen by something to save the world, question that role, and ultimately save the world with the help of a close ally, as well as returning hearts to where they belong. Moana is also an example of a story about protagonists leaving their home to explore an unknown world and learn new things from their journey. This is not only an obvious parallel to Sora's arc in KH1, but to his arc in KH4, with him leaving his old reality behind and going on a journey alone into an unknown reality. But there's another parallel I want to talk about, and that is a parallel between Sora and Te/Tefiti. Early in the film, we learned that Maui stole the heart of the goddess Tefiti, and that Maui suddenly came into conflict with a demon named Te/Ka, only to lose Tefiti's heart during the battle. In the film's climax, we learn that when Tefiti lost her heart, she became Te/Ka, and that her anger is driven by the loss of her heart. When Moana learns this, she allows herself to get close to Te/Ka and sings Know Who You Are, a song that sees Moana telling Te/Ka that her whole journey was to save Tefiti, and comforts her by telling her that this form isn't who she truly is. And when Te/Ka hears her words, she becomes calm and allows Moana to give her lost heart back, which restores her back into Tefiti. This could be a parallel to Sora losing his heart, him falling to darkness, and him being saved and comforted by Riku, who, along with Yozora, would give Sora back his lost heart fragment. Some of the other songs from the film also have parallels to Kingdom Hearts. How Far I'll Go shows Moana's thoughts about trying to fit in with everyone else in Motunui, but also wanting to see what lies beyond her home. This could be viewed as a parallel to Riku and his own desire to leave Destiny Islands, with some of the lyrics even being viewed as exact parallels to Riku and his relationships with his friends. I Am Moana shows Moana finding her inner strength and resolve to restore the heart of Tefiti and coming into her own as a wayfinder. This has multiple parallels to Kingdom Hearts, like with Sora in KH1 with how he regained the power to wield the Keyblade after proclaiming that his friends are his power. Both moments even take place after a close ally or allies abandon their respective protagonists because of their lack of belief in them. This song also parallels Riku's own arc of finding strength within himself and gaining the resolve to protect something precious to him. And while it hasn't happened yet at this point in the series, I think this song could also parallel Sora finding his inner strength in either KH4 or a future game. Now I want to talk about Moana and her grandmother, Tala. Early in the film, we see Grandma Tala give Moana her necklace with the heart of Tefiti inside it, and tells her that she'll always be with her no matter where she goes. Now, some of you might be asking, what could this moment parallel? Why, the meteor shower theory, of course! I won't go into detail about what the theory entails, because I've already done that in the Broken Heart theory video. There's also plenty of other analysis on the theory as well, so please go check them out. And the parallels don't end there. After Tala dies, every time we see her appear in the rest of the film is in the form of a blue spirit, who appears during pivotal moments in Moana's journey. Once when Moana was leaving Motunui, and the other during Moana's darkest hour moment. And in both times, she acted as a guiding light of sorts for Moana, and even being the only source of light in the scenes. Just like how Riku is associated with blue and was also a guiding light for Sora during his darkest hour moment in KH3. There's also parallels between the secret place on Destiny Islands and the secret cave on Motunui. Both include a secret about those places. The secret place with the keyhole, and I'm sure other things we don't know about, and the secret cave with the canoes and the fact that the people of Motunui were once voyagers.
We were voyagers!
I also think there could be parallels between Maui and a couple of the original characters. Maui stealing the heart to Tefiti could be viewed as a parallel to Yozora having a fragment of Sora's heart inside of him. Maui could also have parallels to the Master of Masters. Hear me out. While I can only speculate so much on the Master of Masters since we hardly know anything about him, I can see the story about Maui creating things for humans to be similar to the Master's own creation powers. On a related note, the story Grandma Tala tells about the history of Oceania sounds very similar to the story Kairi's grandmother told her about the Keyblade War. So don't be surprised if other elements of the story of Maui, like him stealing the heart of Te-Fiti, act as parallels to anything we learn about the Master of Masters in KH4. One more thing I want to mention is that Maui's arc could even be viewed as a redemption arc, which is something I think the Master of Masters will have in future Kingdom Hearts games. Coco. Coco is an obvious pick for many, mainly because of its relation to death. And I can't blame people for thinking that. We're seeing quite a few references to death with Quadratum and VM Rex, and Coco would tie in well to that theme. However, I think Coco's possible inclusion could serve an even more important purpose in KH4's narrative. And it all has to do with memory. No, not the cat song. In the film's lore, if a person in the land of the dead has no one left in the living world who remembers them, that person fades away from existence. The film's main example of this is the titular character, Coco, and her not being able to remember her father, Hector. Because of this, Hector starts fading away and is nearly erased from existence. It isn't until the protagonist Miguel sings Remember Me, a song written by Hector, that she is able to regain her memory of her father, which in turn saves Hector from completely fading away. This element of the film could tie into Kingdom Hearts really well, what with the whole thing about Sora forgetting Riku and him falling to darkness and having to be saved by Riku and Yozora. Coco and Hector's relationship works so well as a parallel to Sora and Riku within the context of the memory thing, and showcases how important the memory of someone is when you're far away from them. And no matter how far apart you are from a loved one, they'll always be with you as long as you remember them, something that Kingdom Hearts has touched upon in previous games. I also think Miguel could serve as a parallel to Yozora, and like how Miguel acted as a bridge between Coco and Hector, Yozora could also be a bridge between Sora and Riku, due to him having Sora's memories of Riku and saving Sora from his darkness by returning those memories to him. I should also point out that Coco is another example of a narrative where the protagonist goes to a closed-off place and grows as a person during that time. And just like how the closed-off place Miguel visits is related to death, the closed-off place Sora goes to is also related to death. Alice in Wonderland, 2010. I know, this film is not going to be everyone's top pick, but hear me out. Alice starts the film off as a young adult who's being pressured by the people around her to fulfill their high expectations. Stressed by the situation she's been put in, she wanders into Underland, a place she visited once as a young girl. But she believed that trip was just a dream, which is a belief that was instilled by her father by telling her that she doesn't have to worry about her nightmares becoming real. After she arrives in Underland, she is once again surrounded by people who have high expectations for her because she's a chosen one. Specifically, she is said to be one who will slay a creature called the Jabberwocky on a day known as Frabjous Day, which will also cause the reign of the Red Queen to come to an end. But she not only believes that this trip is also a dream, she also believes that she's not capable of slaying the Jabberwocky. Throughout the film, Alice is constantly thrown into situations out of her control, but decides to take charge of her actions in Underland to go save the Hatter, even though she still believes that this is all a dream. She even tells Hatter this while they're at the White Queen's castle, which causes Hatter to question whether or not he himself is real. But before the film's final battle, she remembers that Underland is real, and so are the people in it, including Hatter. With her resolve stronger than ever, and realizing the full stakes of this battle, she takes on the role as the one who will slay the Jabberwocky and save Underland. After the battle is won, she says goodbye to Hatter and returns to her world, with the resolve to forge her own path. Most of this sounds very similar to Sora's arc. From him being chosen by the Kingdom Key, kinda, to everyone having high expectations for him because of all he has accomplished throughout the series, to him being told what to do by the people around him. And Alice's belief in her visiting Underland, and most specifically the Hatter being a dream, works as a parallel to Sora's struggle to remember his lost memories of Riku. I also think that Alice not remembering Hatter and potentially Sora, and how both of them would react negatively towards Alice because of that, could be a parallel to Sora not remembering Riku and Riku's reaction to that. And in one moment, Hatter mentions to Alice that she has lost her munchness, aka her sense of self. Something she finds before facing the Jabberwocky, like I mentioned before. This parallels Sora's potential lost memories and him finding his own sense of self. Alice's trip to Underland is another example of the protagonist going to a closed-off place and growing as a person from their experiences there. And just like Alice, Sora will probably deal with his own confusion and struggle with finding his way through a new reality and figuring out who he is as a person. There are also parallels between Sora and Riku, and Alice and Hatter. Hatter is the only one who believes in Alice while everyone else doubts her. We see that with their first interaction when he instantly recognizes Alice, whereas everyone else remains unconvinced. Which reminds me of how Riku showed faith in Sora's abilities in KH4 compared to most of everyone else. I should also point out that Alice in Wonderland is one of Nomura's favorite Disney films, and that the White Queen is his favorite character from the movie. So it's not crazy to think that he might include the film in the series. Did I mention that the film also takes place 13 years after Alice's first trip to Wonderland? If that doesn't convince you that the film would make it into Kingdom Hearts, I don't know what will. Zootopia! Side note, it's funny how I'm recording this part of the video soon after Zootopia 2 came out. I haven't seen any of it myself, so I can't make any parallels between that and Kingdom Hearts, but I just want to point out how funny it is that I'm recording this right after Zootopia 2 came out.
1 week later.
Editing Sky here, I have just seen Zootopia 2 and I fucking loved it. Animation was great, world building was great, the narrative and themes were compelling, the dynamic between Nick and Judy was amazing, the potential for it to be in KH5 is definitely there. Like seriously, I was definitely going insane thinking about the potential parallels between this film story and my theories for Kingdom Hearts while I was watching the film, and I'm still thinking about them now, and I definitely want to see the story adapted because of that. And I was flooding my basement whenever Paul Britt and Gazelle's Tigers, and especially my husband Nick Wilde, were on screen. Why yes, I am a disgusting, horny gay furry. What are you gonna do about it? Okay, back to the video. Both of the film's protagonists, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, have a bit in common with Riku and Sora respectively. I want to start by talking about Judy. During the film's third act, Judy makes the mistake of saying that biology was the reason why the missing predators were acting savage. This caused a rift between her and Nick because he felt hurt from that comment after becoming friends with Judy. But after realizing that she was wrong, she went to Nick to apologize and the two of them reconciled. This kind of parallels Riku in KH1, who made the mistake of causing the destruction of Destiny Islands, siding with the villains, and using the darkness for selfish reasons, which he later made amends for in KH2. Of course, both of these examples are very different, but they still involve a character who makes a big mistake that causes them to hurt a close friend and then later reconcile with them. Moving on to the parallels between Nick and Sora, at one point in the film, Nick gives Judy the advice to never let them see that they get to you. This is because when he was a kid, he was bullied out of a scout troop because he was a predator and learned to hide how he really feels from the world so he doesn't get hurt again. This is similar to Sora and how he was taught to hide his feelings about his hurt in KH1. Now, with these parallels in mind, I want to talk about what I think a story in a Zootopia world could be about. Unlike the other worlds on this list, I think the story in a Zootopia world would be an original story. The reason I think this is simply because there's not a lot of parallels between the story of the film and Kingdom Hearts in comparison to other films I've talked about. At least to me anyway. There probably are some that I'm not aware of yet, but I digress. I think an original Zootopia story in KH4 could be centered around Nick and him learning to be vulnerable to others. And because of the Sora parallels I established earlier, I can see Nick having to face his own darkness or be consumed by it like Buzz in KH3. And just like how Riku could play a big role in helping Sora, I think Judy could help Nick conquer his own inner demons in this story. Also, while I don't know how specifically it could be used, I can definitely see them using the carrot pin that connects Judy and Nick as a parallel to the crown charm that connects Riku and Sora. Raya and the Last Dragon. I want to start by talking about the Dragon Gem. The Dragon Gem was created 500 years ago by Sisu's siblings in order to defeat the Droon, a dark force born from human discord. Which, side note, reminds me of the legend of the Keyblade War Kairi's grandmother told her. The gem was protected by the people of Heart, one of the tribes of Kumandra, for 500 years. However, at the beginning of the film, when all the tribes come to Heart, they begin to fight over the gem, which causes it to be broken in several pieces, each being taken by a member of each tribe, and also causes the Droon to return. This parallels the idea that Sora's heart is broken and is causing him to become more likely to fall to darkness. Like how Raya decided to trust Namari, someone she viewed as an enemy, to put all the pieces of the gem back together, I think Sora accepting darkness as both a part of himself and as something that shouldn't be viewed as just an enemy will help heal his heart. On a related note, water. Now, water in Kingdom Hearts has been associated with darkness throughout the series. From the 0.2 opening of Aqua being seen underwater, to the wave coming behind Riku in the KH4 opening. Now, while water in Raya isn't associated with darkness, I think it could still be the case within the context of Kingdom Hearts. Water in the film is the only thing that can push back the Droon, and when the Dragon Gem is fixed, this causes the Droon to once again disappear. This could be a parallel to Sora's possible future acceptance of darkness, like I mentioned before. Now let's talk about Raya and Namari's relationship. In the film, Raya and Namari's dynamic plays out pretty similarly to Sora and Riku's in KH1. Raya and Namari start off as friends, but Namari uses Raya's trust to get to the Dragon Gem, which leads to the tribes fighting over the gem breaking, and the return of the Droon. They spend most of the film as enemies until Raya becomes willing to trust Namari by giving her back her dragon pendant, which Namari gave to Raya when they were kids as a sign of trust. However, in an effort to get all the gem pieces from Raya in order to save her home Fang, Namari hesitantly pulls out a crossbow and aims it at Raya. But instead, thanks in part to Raya hitting Namari's crossbow, Namari accidentally kills Sisu, which causes all the water to disappear and for the Droon to attack Fang. Raya, in anger, goes to Fang and faces off against Namari, only for the fight to end and Namari telling Raya that they're both to blame for Sisu's death, which causes Raya to have a moment of clarity. Then, by working together and trusting one another, Raya, her friends, and Namari fix the Dragon Gem, saving the world in the process. In Kingdom Hearts, Sora and Riku go through similar things as Raya and Namari. An early moment between the two involves Riku giving Sora his crown necklace as a sign of their bond, provided the meteor shower theory is true, that is. Then later, Riku falls to darkness and betrays Sora, causing them to be on opposing sides for most of KH1. But by the end of the game, they work together to save the world and become friends again. Of course, these two narratives aren't exactly the same, but you can't deny that both pairings have a lot in common. Especially once you look at the similarities between the characters themselves. Both Raya and Sora lost their homes to forces of darkness, which was partly because of the actions of someone they trusted. They both have preconceived notions and biases against those they believe are their enemies and have trouble unlearning those ideals. They also both have trouble admitting to themselves that they can make mistakes. In Raya's case, it's not realizing that she was also to blame for Sisu's death alongside Namari. And in Sora's case, it's not acknowledging that his heroic actions can be reckless and that he has his own untamed inner darkness because of the negative emotions he's been ignoring. As for the parallels between Namari and Riku, they both seek something that could give them power, but those desires lead to the downfall of their worlds. They both also try to form and reform a connection with the protagonist, but fail to because they don't know how to take that step. But by the end of their respective stories, they both realize their mistakes and manage to save their worlds, alongside the person that's been their rival for most of the narrative. I also think there are parallels between Raya and Riku. In both the film and KH4, they both become blinded by their own darkness, which causes them to unintentionally destroy their home. But then they see the consequences of those actions and decide to sacrifice themselves to make things right. Speaking of sacrifices, Raya's sacrifice could also be seen as a parallel to Riku's other sacrifice in KH3. And Namari, being the last one of the lead characters to sacrifice herself, which ultimately saves the day, could be a parallel to Sora being the one guardian of light left after his friends got consumed by the demon tide, and is able to save his friends and the world because he was the last one of the guardians standing. And both Raya and Riku paved the way for what Namari and Sora did in order to save the day. Now I want to talk about Sisu and how she could be a parallel to two specific characters. First is Sora. In the film, every time Sisu and Raya find a piece of the Dragon Gem, Sisu gets back one of her siblings' powers. This is yet another parallel to Sora's broken heart and how if he finds the missing piece of his heart, he'll get his memories back. Next is Yozora. Like Sora, Yozora is also missing parts of himself. Specifically his body and his memories of Nameless Star. And just like Sisu, I think Yozora would get back those parts of himself. I also think it's worth noting that Sisu is a water dragon, and because water equals darkness in Kingdom Hearts, this could parallel Sora and Yozora possibly having strong darkness within their hearts in KH4. I also think it's worth noting that the core theme of the film is trust. And within the context of KH4, I think that could mean a trust between the forces of light and darkness, which is a lesson I think is important for Sora to learn, like the possibility of Sora having to form an alliance with Vanitas. Just like how Raya learned to trust Namari, despite thinking that her and the tribe Fang are her enemies. Finally, I think KH4 will make references to KH1 throughout this world. Mainly because that is what made Sora and Riku's relationship more complex than it was when they were kids. And because Riku would probably blame himself for Sora's memory loss and go to unreality because of what he did in KH1. And it's also worth noting that they still haven't unpacked everything that happened to KH1 despite still being friends. KH1 is also where we saw Sora develop both his toxic positivity and his linear view of light and darkness. So I think looking back at what happened in that game will be an important part of both Sora and Riku's arcs going forward. And I think Raya and the Last Dragon would be a good way to look back on just how influential KH1 was to both Sora and Riku as characters. Encanto. Let's start by talking about the parallels between Sora and Mirabel. Mirabel is the only member of her family with no magical powers. She compensates this by trying to help in any way she can for her family in an effort to prove her worth. But this hinders her from looking inside herself and seeing that she already is special and that her lack of a magical gift is in itself a gift. The reason she was born without a gift was because her grandmother, Alma, believes that the only way for the Encanto and the Madrigal family to survive is for every family member to have a gift. So Mirabel is a shock to the system, so to speak, because her normalcy is what ends up saving her home and her family. And doesn't this sound similar to Sora? They both don't have any inherent special traits compared to the people around them, and have both been treated differently by others because of their lack of those special traits. You can even say that the way Mirabel is treated by others is similar to how the kids on Destiny Islands treated Sora in comparison to Riku. And just like how Mirabel's normalcy is the key to resolving the film's main crisis, Sora's normalcy is what resolves the conflicts of multiple games in the series. Also, they're both adorable, so obviously they could get along really well if they ever meet. But Mirabel isn't the only character Sora is similar to. He's also similar to both Luisa and Isabella, because like Sora, they both have expectations to be perfect in their roles and are taught to not acknowledge the hurt that comes from that pressure. And both of their respective songs highlight this. In Surface Pressure, Luisa sings about the struggle to carry the weight of her family's troubles on her shoulders and the strain that takes on her mentality. And in What Else Can I Do, Isabella sings about the joy of accepting a part of herself that she wasn't taught to acknowledge and finds happiness in her imperfections. There is one more character I want to talk about, and that is the matriarch of the Madrigal family, Alma. As the head of the family, she wants only for the protection of the Encanto and her family. but she isn't willing to accept that she's the one causing the magic of the Encanto to weaken because of her pressuring her family to be strong and perfect. And instead of taking responsibility, she blames it on outside forces, specifically her granddaughter Mirabel and her son Bruno. Only after seeing the damage of her actions does she realize her shortcomings. The root of her mentality comes from her losing her husband, who was protecting her and their children from an unnamed enemy. All of this could serve as a warning to Sora on what he could become if he strives only to protect the light, tries to always stay strong, and doesn't look inward at his flaws. But Sora isn't the only character that shares parallels to Alma. Just like how Alma's strong desire to protect her family and Encanto is what caused the destruction of her home, Riku's strong desire to protect Sora, along with wanting to leave Destiny Islands, is what caused the destruction of his home. And Mirabel and Alma being the only members of their family who don't have magic, and their renewed bond being what saved the Encanto, could be a potential parallel to Sora and Riku both being the child of Destiny, and their bond through that shared role being what saves the day. I also think Alma could be a parallel to the Master of Masters. Now, we know very little about his past and motives, but what we do know is that he lost his loved ones in the Keyblade War, wants nothing more than to destroy the darkness and to protect the light, and is willing to do anything to achieve that, even if it means harming others. Now, I'm not saying Alma is as bad as the Master of Masters, but they are similar in wanting to protect what's important to them, but aren't willing to acknowledge the flaws in their methods of doing that. I can even see the scene where Mirabel and Alma reconcile foreshadow a redemption moment for the Master of Masters in KH4, and Sora being the one to show the Master of Masters the error of his ways. All of these parallels with Alma are representations of one of the series' main messages about how the closer you get to the light, the greater your shadow becomes. Speaking of Alma, the Dos Oruguitas scene could be used as a parallel to the bond between Sora and Riku. From Piedro's sacrifice to protect the people precious to him, to the lyrics about the separation and reunion of two people who love each other, which are parallels to Riku's sacrifice in KH3 and the potential plot of KH4 with Riku trying to find Sora. And just like how a bright candle appeared after Pedro's sacrifice, saving Alma and creating the Encanto in the process, Riku appeared as a bright light saving Sora and guiding him to a new world line. One more thing I want to touch upon is a plot point about the cracks in the Madrigal's casita, which show that the magic of the Encanto is weakening. And in the film's third act, it gets destroyed because Alma wasn't able to acknowledge that she was the cause of the magic failing. A signifier of the magic becoming weaker was the candle's light getting dimmer. And like the casita, the candle was also destroyed. This is yet another parallel to Sora's broken heart, with Sora being Alma, his heart being the casita, and the candle being his bond with Riku. And finally, we have come to the last world on the list. Now, I have a confession to make. Earlier in the video, I did say that these worlds were not listed in any particular order, but that was a lie.
嘘やで
Because this last world is actually not just the one world I want to see most in KH4, but my most wanted world in the entire series period. And that is The Princess and the Frog. And here are the reasons why. In the film, both Tiana and Naveen struggle to understand what love is because of the kind of lives they've led, and them prioritizing their own goals over anything else. After Naveen's encounter with Dr. Facilier, which turned him into a frog, and a failed attempt at transforming back into a human via a kiss with Tiana, who also turns into a frog because of that, they're forced to have to work together to find a way to turn back into humans. Throughout their journey, in yet another closed-off place, they go through various trials which strengthen their trust with each other. They even learn new things from one another, and start to grow fond of each other. When they meet Mama Odie, she tells them that the only way to break the spell on them is for Naveen to be kissed by a princess, something he assumed when he first met Tiana and thought she was a princess. Specifically, Tiana's friend, Charlotte, one of the best characters in the entire movie by the way, I think we can all agree on that. Naveen eventually understands what love is and even tries to propose to Tiana. However, while trying to make that happen, both Tiana and Naveen end up getting separated, with Tiana learning about Naveen's plan and now starting to feel the same way towards him, only for her to see someone disguised as Naveen transformed back into a human about to marry Charlotte. Distraught by who she thought was the real Naveen, she feels like none of her dreams will ever come true. But after encountering Dr. Facilier and being tempted by his offer to give him the charm that contains Naveen's blood, and have her dream of opening her restaurant come true, she realizes that she already has what she really needed. And that's love. The love from the people around her, the love she has for Naveen, and vice versa. Tiana and Naveen struggle with not understanding the importance of love and them not making time to think about what they really need is similar to Sora's own arc throughout the series. Sora has really never made the time to think about what else he wants in his life besides wanting to protect his friends. And we know that Sora is still confused about what love is, but it's something he's obviously curious about. So him visiting a princess in a frog world could be an opportunity for him to get a clearer idea on what love is. You could also view Naveen being from royalty and Tiana being married into royalty to be a parallel to Riku being the initial child of destiny and giving that power to Sora. There's also potential for parallels between Sora and Riku and Rei and Evangeline. For most of the film, Rei talks about his love for his late girlfriend Evangeline, the star that we see up in the night sky that acts as a wishing star for some of the characters. Both of them are separated between two metaphorical planes of existence, with Rei still being alive and Evangeline having passed on. Which is similar to how KH4 ended, with Riku staying in the metaphorical world of the living and Sora disappearing into a metaphorical world of the dead. However, Rei is then killed by Dr. Facilier, but is later seen with Evangeline up in the sky, showing that the two have been reunited. And we see at the end of Melody of Memory that Riku is heading for that metaphorical afterlife. And just like how Rei views Evangeline as his light, Riku, in the novels, views Sora as his light. I also want to talk about the song Dig a Little Deeper. In the song, Mama Odie sings about how both Tiana and Naveen have things they want, but haven't found what they need. And while Sora wants to protect his friends, he hasn't figured out what he needs. So seeing characters like Tiana and Naveen learning that lesson could encourage Sora to think about what he needs versus what he wants. There is one more important element of The Princess and the Frog that I want to talk about. And that is true love's kiss. It is brought up throughout the film that the only way for Naveen and Tiana to turn back into humans is for Naveen to be kissed by a princess. And for most of the film, they both think that the only one that can kiss him is Tiana's friend Charlotte, who is princess of the Mardi Gras. It is also worth noting that Naveen originally wanted to marry Charlotte because she's rich. But as he grows closer to Tiana, his goals start to shift, and he decides that he wants to marry Tiana instead, but still wants to kiss Charlotte so that he and Tiana can turn back into humans. However, by the time that Charlotte and Naveen were about to kiss, midnight hits, and it seems like Tiana and Naveen would stay frogs forever. But they're okay with that as long as they're together, which could act as a parallel to the end of KH2 where Sora and Riku are stranded in the realm of darkness but are okay with that because they know the realm of light is safe and that they're together. Luckily for them, when they got married at the end of the film, they kissed and became human again, since Tiana became a princess when she married Naveen. So, how does this tie in with Kingdom Hearts? Well, it's because Sora has never seen anyone kiss before! Despite the fact that he has had many encounters with various Disney couples, he's never actually seen any of them kiss. Even in scenes where you expect one of the couples to kiss, we don't actually see them kiss. Like Rapunzel and Eugene's first kiss in Tangled, which was oddly absent in KH3. And some characters have kissed on screen, but not when Sora's around. Examples: Aladdin and Jasmine in the KH1 credits, Ariel and Eric in the KH2 credits, and Snow White and the Prince and Aurora and Philip in Birth by Sleep. And call me a conspiracy theorist, but I think this is intentional. As I mentioned before, Sora still has a lot to learn about love, and I think that Princess in the Frog world, more than any other world in the series, would do a lot to help him get a better understanding of what love is. As I've laid out throughout this section, love is an integral part of Tiana and Naveen's arcs, which makes them a perfect couple for Sora to interact with since, like him, they don't fully understand love for most of the film, but they do by the end of it. And the kiss between them that turned them back into humans is a main example of their growth. Sora seeing this growth between the two throughout his trip in this world could be a catalyst for his own growth in understanding love. And the kiss would leave the biggest impact on him, because he would get to see that love is powerful enough to break any curse, which he kinda already learned in KH4, but this world would better his understanding of love even further. Which is something this series has probably been setting up, since it's mentioned in past games how love could be the key to conquering both light and darkness. I can already imagine his face if he sees this moment between the two. He would be awestruck and might start wanting that for himself. And maybe, just maybe, Tiana and Naveen's kiss could foreshadow the first kiss between him and another character. And I can see this kiss happening after one of them, or both of them, become cursed. And personally, I think Sora should be the one who instigates that kiss. It would be a full circle moment for him, since it would symbolize his newfound understanding of love. Now, we still don't know if he even wants a relationship, and if so, with who. You can probably guess which team I'm in, which is of course Team Sora. Let's see, in-game actually, baby! Just kidding. But regardless of who Sora could end up with, I think it's safe to say that the Princess and the Frog could be a very important world for Sora to visit in KH4. Now, I should stress that this is all assuming the film is even in KH4 to begin with. But if it does make it in, I believe that a Princess and the Frog world could be the most important Disney world, not just in KH4, but one of the most important worlds in the series overall.
This will be a romantic story like none that has come before. You think so too, right?
And that is my list of Disney worlds I want to see and think will be in KH4. I've had these thoughts in my head for a long ass time, so I'm happy to finally share these thoughts with more people. Emphasis on more people though, cause I actually did make a Tumblr blog earlier this year about the topic, link in the description, but wanted to make a video about it too, and I finally did, thank fucking god. And hopefully I'm able to have this whole video made and released before the Game Awards. You know, just in case. Anyway, I'd love to hear your own thoughts on the video, and just on Disney Worlds in KH4 in general, and what worlds you want to see in the game. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, I hope you liked this illustration I made of Yozora as a wolf that you saw the speed paint of throughout the video. It was definitely one of the most challenging pieces I've ever made, but I am very happy with how it turned out, and it's now one of my favorite art pieces I've done. If you want to see the full illustration yourself, links to it on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Pixiv will be in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, please like and share this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe so you won't miss any future videos, and maybe check out my past videos if you wanna. Please take care of yourselves, and keep on keeping on. Also, I'm just saying this right now, if a Princess in the Frog world gets announced with KH4, that is immediately going to increase my confidence in Soriku becoming canon. I am just saying, people, be prepared for me to yap about how likely Soriku is to become canon after that announcement happens.